What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tea with Carley. I am your host, Carley, aka Teacher Carley, and today this episode is going to be your one-stop shop for mastering the American lifestyle. Because as you can see, the title is Tips and Taxes. I know, it doesn't really sound that interesting. Nobody really likes taxes. Nobody really likes talking about it. And the tipping culture in the US can be a little crazy. But, I feel like it's something important to share with you all. I have a lot of students and viewers that plan to become expats here, whether it's for 1 or 2 years, or immigrants here in the US, or maybe just travel. And I think it's a really good topic for you guys to know and understand before you plan on coming to the US. And also, your girl has a lot of stuff to say about it because, Americans aren't so happy with this either, but we deal with it because we are Americans. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and start with understanding the tax system in the United States. So taxes are essentially your financial contribution to the government. So this money that we give funds things like public services, like roads, schools, and healthcare. Now, it's supposed to fund these things. Does it actually fund these things? We do not know because somehow we still have crappy roads, our school systems are bad, and we still have to pay thousands of dollars a year for our healthcare. But supposedly, our taxes are supposed to cover things like that. If you can tell, I'm a little bit salty. Yes, I love being an American because I know, that there's a lot of people out there who would die to be in my position. However, I do think that America is in a position now in today's age where it is literally almost impossible for people to survive here in America with all these things we have to take into consideration, like healthcare and taxes and like inflation, the housing market, and so on and so forth. So if I seem a little salty or a little biased in today's podcast, it's because I am a millennial living in America. All right. So I am a little bit salty right now. But yeah, so back to the US tax system. It can seem a bit complex, but don't worry, I'm going to break it down step by step. All right. So there are 2 main types that you'll likely encounter if you're coming here to the US. The first one is income tax and the second is sales tax. Now there's many more if you are an American citizen living here. You are literally taxed on everything. I joke and tell my kids that we have to pay tax just to breathe air. It's a joke, but if you want to really think about it, yeah, we do. We have to pay tax on literally everything. So income tax is a percentage of the money that you earn from your job or any other income sources, like if you're a freelancer or, you have investments or things like that. The amount you pay depends on your filing status. So if you are single or married and your total income. So you pay what you can afford, quote unquote. Let me rephrase that. You pay what the government assumes that you can afford based on your salary and then your filing status. If it's just you, if you're married, if you have kids, things of that nature. So that is your income tax. It's basically, you never see that money. It is there in spirit, but not in reality. So your job takes it and gives it to the government before you even get a chance to receive it. So no matter what, if you're working here in America, you will have to pay income tax. No matter what job you have, as long as it is a legal job with a W-2, you are going to have to pay income tax. Now, there are some things like a 1099, you're a freelancer, or maybe you have like a part-time job or something, some kind of gig, or maybe you're a business owner. There's different things there, but in the end, you're still going to have to pay your taxes. It might look a little different, but you're still going to have to pay your taxes. And I know it's been 5 minutes already, and even I'm getting pretty bored with this because I hate talking about taxes, but I just wanted to lay down the fundamentals for you all so that you know exactly what I'm talking about when I go on and complain about the taxes. So other things that we have to pay in tax is sales tax. And if you come to America, you'll probably notice You buy something, it says it's $9.99, and you're like, oh, okay, it's $9.99. Weird how we have to put 99 cents. I know a lot of other countries, it's just a flat. Like in Korea, it'll be like 12,000 won. In Japan, it will be like 1,200 yen. But in America, we like to make things complicated. So $9.99. But you don't actually pay that because sales tax is a small fee that you pay on almost all taxable goods that you buy. So clothes, electronics, groceries, literally like everything. And the exact rate varies depending on what state you live in and stuff. Some states don't even have sales tax at all. But even if you live in one of those states, trust me, you're paying taxes in other ways, Let's say you have this thing, you want this t-shirt and it costs $9.99. It's on sale for $9.99 and you're like, wow, this is a really good deal. It was $25. It's on sale for $9.99. I have a $10 bill. Let me go pay for this. And then you go to pay and it's like, just kidding. Your total is $11 and something. And you're like, what? Or maybe it's like $10.99 or $10.90, depending on where you are. And you're like, I thought it was $9.99. Well, you didn't include the sales tax. When you go to checkout, so then the sales tax comes in and is like, hey, remember me? If you want to wear this fancy new shirt, you have to pay for me. You have to pay tax because you have to pay tax on everything. So that's where the difference comes in. So there's this whole thing, like if you're in America, April 15th of each year, you have to file your taxes. It's a whole big ordeal. Most of the time, the government says you owe or you don't get anything back at all. Even if you have kids, if you have a stable job, you owe money. It doesn't matter. You owe a crap ton of money. You have to pay it and life goes on. It's really annoying. But there are some things you can do to get like a tax break. It's called deductions and stuff, and it just lowers your taxes that you have to pay. And trust me, you're going to want to do that because if you don't have any deductions or you're like, oh, it's okay, I don't need to file anything, you are going to be paying a lot of money for taxes. So I know it's boring right now, tax talk, and I hate math and I don't even fully understand taxes. So if you are like an accountant or a tax guru and you're listening to this podcast, I apologize in advance because this podcast was not made to inform anyone by any means of every little thing you have to know about taxes. This is just a generalization that I am doing so that I can go into my complaints of the day. All right. So just remember that tax laws change from day to day and being informed is like key. You can sign up for like updates and stuff or something like that. But honestly, taxes are not fun. And it's confusing at times. Like I mentioned, you'll have your t-shirt. It's on sale. That's amazing. It's $9.99. You go to check out and it's way more than you thought because of taxes. And now if you live someplace like in the middle of nowhere, taxes might not be that much. But if you live in a big city, it might be crazy expensive. Like you might be paying $3 or $4 more on this thing. And the more expensive an item is, the more expensive the tax is going to be. So where I live, it's like 7 cents on the dollar. So for every dollar you pay, you have to pay an extra 7 cents in tax. So if I buy something that is like, a few grand, if I'm, making a big purchase, buying furniture for my house or something like that, I'm going to be paying a few $100s in taxes easily, depending on everything that I buy. So it's pretty annoying, but it's really important to note if you are coming to the US that taxes are everywhere and you will have to pay them. I'm sorry. Most likely you'll encounter sales tax, especially if you're just visiting here. But trust me, if you start to work here and you are so excited because you are like, oh, my job, I'm making $50 an hour. This is going to be great. And then you get your paycheck and it's more like you make $35 an hour. And you're like, whoa. Where's my money going? It's taxes. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars will go to taxes every paycheck because that's the US for you. And I know it's not just the US. I lived in South Korea for many years and I had to pay taxes in South Korea too. And I know Japan. I studied abroad in Japan, but I know that tax in Japan is really crazy too. It's not just the US, it's everywhere in the world. And I know it's like our duty to pay tax. I'm just saying that most places you pay tax on this, and this. and that's it. Here in America, you literally pay tax on everything, and then other people pay tax on it, and then other people pay tax on it too, and it's all the same money, but you have like 6 people paying tax on it because that's just how it's supposed to be. It is crazy. I watched this video the other day, and it was like, America literally, 100, was it 100, 150 years ago now? I don't even know. My American history is not that great. I love like world history. American history, not so much. It's not that fun to me. But we literally, had like the whole Boston Tea Party, and we revolted over them taxing a beverage. We had an actual like uprising because they taxed a beverage. And now they're literally taxing the air that we breathe, and we still are like, okay, cool, yeah, just take that out of my paycheck. We're good. We're Gucci. Let's move on. Yeah, I'm going to have to pay double for this in the long run, but it's cool. I don't understand this day and age, but taxes, just be prepared. If you plan to come to America anytime soon, you're going to have to pay a lot in taxes, most likely, if you plan on shopping. Now, I'm not going to lie. America has some pretty good shopping, and if you're anything like me, you are going to want to shop when you travel, so just be prepared. Bring an extra little fund to the side for taxes. Now, the other thing, I want to switch gears a little bit here because I'm talking about tips and taxes, things that you should be aware of coming to America. It can be kind of like a culture shock because in most countries you do pay taxes, yes, but the tax is already included in the final price. So you go to the store, like in Korea, you go to the store and it says, oh, these shoes cost 45,000 won. 45,000 won this day and age is like roughly maybe like $38. And you're like, okay, cool. And you go up and you pay, and it's 45,000 won because the tax is already included. If you were to pay that $38 here in America, it would be $38 plus the tax, whatever the tax is on it. So it'll be a different amount. So we have that. We also have tipping. All right. So we're switching gears and we're going to talk about tipping. Tipping can be really confusing, especially if you're a newcomer to the US, because it's not included in the bill amount up front. Now, it is becoming more and more common that they include gratuity, which is another word for tip, gratuity. And people at restaurants and some other like event places, they might go ahead and include the tip up front in the bill, but it's not super common yet. It's becoming increasingly more popular, especially if you're with a huge group of like, let's say 6 or more people. If you're going out to eat and there's 6 or more people at the table, they're like, oh, gratuity is included. So they go ahead and they tax you before you even get the bill. But I would say most of the time you will have to pick your own tip, or did I say tax? They go ahead and add the tip, not tax. See, even I'm confused. Why are we spending so much money? But anyways, they will go ahead and add the gratuity or the tip fee in your or on your bill. Sometimes if you have like a large group, or if you're buying tickets for an event and they're like, hey, you have to tip because there's like a fee, early access fee or internet fee or, whatever kind of fee, but really it's just a tip. And if you don't know how to leave a tip, I'm going to break down the standard tip amounts, all right? Because like I said, sometimes it's not automatically included. Sometimes you have to go out of your way and do math. And if you're anything like me, math is the enemy, all right? Math, I just can't, all right? So the standard tip amount for good service is around 15%. And some people will say, Carly, how dare you? That is so low. But you know what? I am a Christian and I grew up in the church. And when I was tithing, which this is another bonus word for you. So you know how you donate money to the church, you have like an offering, that's called a tithe. When I was tithing growing up, and even now today, I always give 10%. Because that is what my parents taught me. That is what is acceptable. So I always give 10% to God. And my philosophy was if 10% is good enough for God, it should be good enough for other people. However, I do understand inflation. I do understand there are people out there working, 3, 4 jobs trying to put food on their table. So if I truly have good service, I will tip 15, 20, 25% of my bill. I usually try to make a median in between the 15 and 20 for 18%, and I tip that. And Usually it comes out of the amount before tax. Sometimes it's after tax, but you just tip some kind of percentage of your total bill. All right. So I know you might see in movies sometimes, somebody leaves like $2 on the table. When they go to leave, they're like, oh, here's $2. Just so you know, that is kind of an older generation thing. We don't tip in cash as much these days. We still can. But back in the day, leaving $2 on the table, perfectly acceptable. $5 on the table was like, oh my gosh, you're a great waitress or waiter. But I was in Florida with my parents recently, and we went out to eat, and my dad left a $20 bill on the table. Now, it was just us four and my two kids. So, we had 6 people. We didn't eat a lot. And my dad left a $20 bill. And I was like, all right, that seems reasonable, $20 bill. And then he also tipped 15% on his card. And I was like, dang, that's a lot. And he was like, oh, well, she was a really good waitress. She got everything that we needed. And then I saw the bill and I was like, oh, goodness, the bill is a little expensive. I didn't realize that. And I was just thinking, these people, the reason why we have to tip here in America is because they are underpaid. So I don't mind tipping for good service. What I do mind is these days it's being pushed on you. And I know it's me complaining again. I told you, I promised you, this Tea with Carley wasn't going to be a podcast about me complaining. But like sometimes I just have to say what's on my mind. All right, guys? And what's on my mind right now is that I will go to a place and I will literally buy a drink, one drink. And sometimes that drink is something that I have to fill up myself. So all the people, the workers, all the employees do is cash me out, like check me out, and give me a cup that I go and fill up. And they're like, here, look at the screen and add a tip. And there's like options and it's like 15, 20, 30. And I'm like, why do I need to tip you when I'm doing all the work? That's what I don't understand. And I know I'm going to get people in the comments, maybe. Hopefully not. Hopefully everybody's nice here. And I don't even know if I'm that popular right now to have hate comments. But some people might have different views. This is my opinion, you guys. Please don't hate me. But if you are serving me like at a restaurant, or if you're like really helping me out, if I'm somewhere like, the Apple store or any kind of place where I need help from some kind of advisor, or I need advice on something, and you're helping me out and you're going above and beyond or whatever, you're doing your job, then of course I'm happy to tip you. If you're literally just giving me, like I buy a drink and then I have to go fill up the drink myself, I don't really know why I have to tip, because it's just me doing all the work. Sometimes I do it anyways, because sometimes people are staring at you like, you better tip me, and I feel awkward, and I'm like such a pushover that I tip. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, it's not sometimes, it's 9 times out of 10 I end up tipping, because I just feel awkward because they're standing there like staring at me. The other day I was in a drive-through. All right, it's a drive-through. I already pay tax, and the reason I'm going through a drive-through is because I don't want to go inside where I might have to tip somebody. So I was in a drive-through and I ordered the food. It was just for my kids. I already had food for myself and my husband at home, and my kids were begging for like chicken nuggets or whatever, and I was like, fine, you can have it. I go through the drive-through and I was like, hey, do you guys have Apple Pay? They're like, yeah, sure. Apple Pay is, when you have an Apple or any kind of Apple products like Apple Watch or iPhone, you can use your phone to pay. So they're like, yeah, sure. So I go and I, use my Apple Pay, and then they ask if I want a tip. And I'm like, you're not, like, why do I have to tip you when I'm going through the drive-through? And like, you're not waiting on me. You're just giving me the food that I already paid for, that's already taxed too. Like, I don't understand. But I tipped because I was like, oh, okay, I feel obligated. I feel weird. It's just an American culture kind of thing. I will say, this is a really funny story. When I was in Korea, it was like my first few months in Korea. Like literally I'd only been in Korea for maybe like 2 months. I don't even know if it was that long. And I went to Outback Steakhouse in Korea. And my mind was like, oh, Outback Steakhouse is really common here in the US. And in the US, here in America, we have to tip when we go to like American restaurants. So maybe I'm stupid, and also don't judge me. I was like 19 or 20 years old. So maybe I was stupid, but I was like, oh, this is an American restaurant, so I must have to leave a tip. All right, because in America we tip. And I have been told a million times by like my Korean friends and my ex-husband and my ex-husband's family, like, hey, we don't tip here in Korea. And I was like, bet, I got you. Like, say less because I want to keep my money anyways. But when I went to Outback, I was like, I feel obligated to tip because this is an American restaurant. And then I was able to view my receipt in English and pay in US currency if I wanted to. So I was like, yeah, I should probably tip. So I left Ochan won, which is 5,000 won, on the table. I literally only got like an appetizer and I don't know, a drink. That's all I really got there. I was just like meeting my friends there and we were going to go somewhere else, but we had like time to kill. So I got like an appetizer and a drink and I just left $5 as a tip. And when I tell you, the waiter literally chased me down, like it was in a mall. All right. It was like on the top, one of the top floors of this mall in Suwon. And this waiter chased me down. I was going to the movie theater and he like chased me down the hallway, like down a set of stairs and like almost into the movie theater to give me back my 5,000 won because he thought I left it on the table. And I was like, oh, no, that's for you. And he was like, I can't. And I was like, no, it's like a tip. And he was like, I can't accept this. And I'm like, oh, no, it's because like you're my waiter. And he was like, please, I'm not allowed to accept this. Like I will get fired. And I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, fine. Okay, I'm sorry. So he gave it back to me. And I was like, that is so crazy. It's completely different than here in America. Like, here in America, $5, you leave it on the table and people will be like, why did you only leave $5? Why couldn't you tip more? In Korea, it's like, you please take this money back. I don't know what to do with it. I'm not allowed to accept it. Like, I don't need it, please. It's totally different. So I guess all in all, it's important to note that tipping technically is not mandatory here in America, but it's generally expected to be like good manners. If you want to be perceived as somebody who is nice, kind, caring, well-mannered or whatever, then you tip. But if you receive poor service or, service that is not up to your standards, it's okay for you to leave a lower tip amount. Or sometimes people don't tip at all when they receive really bad service. But it's not good practice to not tip at all. Like I'm just saying, even if your service was really bad and you're just like, I will never come here again. Okay, do that. Never go there again, but at least leave a small tip, like $1, $2, whatever, and that shows like, hey, my service wasn't that great. And whoever is working that day, they might be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I was pretty rude today, or it shows on my tips. I need to try better the next day. But leaving no tip at all is considered like extremely rude here in the US, except for if it's like things like I told you, you're going through the drive-thru, or you are getting a cup of coffee and you have to go fill it up yourself, or even if they make you the cup of coffee, but you're just like, oh, do I really have to leave a tip for, a quick cup of coffee or something? Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, most of the time I do leave a tip regardless, but there has been times, I have 2 kids, they're very indecisive. So I have been at a bakery before, or a cafe, and I have checked out maybe 3 or 4 times already. After the second time, I don't leave tips anymore. I'm like, bro, I've already left you guys 2 tips. I'm not going to tip again because like I'll buy a cup of coffee for myself and then my kids are like, mommy, we want cookies. So I was like, okay. And then we sit down and the cookies have nuts in them. And my kids are like, oh my gosh, I don't want the nuts. So then I'm like, all right, go find something else. We'll save the cookies for later. Meaning mommy will eat the cookies later. Ha ha ha. But then we go back and we get bread or something, like a bakery item for my kids. And I check out again and I tip again. And then I get down and I sit down and then we start eating. And then my kids are like, oh, I'm thirsty. Mommy, can I have some of your drink? And I'm like, no, you may not, because it's coffee. So then I'm like, let's buy you a drink. So we go back up and we get a drink. And then it asks me if I want to tip. And I'm like, you guys, I've probably already spent $15 in tips. I'm not going to tip anymore because I just am indecisive, So sometimes like that, it's okay to like not tip because you've already tipped before. But all in all, it's kind of rude if you don't tip, but feel free to leave a lower tip if you feel like the service wasn't up to par or anything like that. And these days, it's all like on iPads or those little machines where it just gives you a suggested tip. And there's like 3 or 4 different options. You can just click whichever one. Usually I pick whatever's in the middle because that's just how I was raised. My dad said you never want to go with the lowest or the highest. You always want to go with the middle. And I live by that motto, you guys. I don't even know if it's a motto, but the little advice that my dad gave me when I was a teenager, he was like, never buy the cheapest option of anything and never buy the most expensive option of anything. You always want to go with something in the middle because it's way more reliable. Because 9 times out of 10, if you buy the cheapest, then you're going to get what you pay for, which is something that's not that great. And also 9 times out of 10, if you go for the more expensive or the most expensive one, then you're paying for like a brand or a name or something. It's not necessarily quality. So you always want to go with something in the middle. And I do that with literally everything, with the electronics that I buy, with my car, like that I bought, with furniture, with clothing products, with purses, shoes, like everything. That's how I operate. All right. And when it comes down to it, that's how I tip as well. I didn't really notice it until I'm talking about it now, but I always go with what's in the middle because I don't want to go with the lowest because I feel bad, and I don't want to go with the highest because, I'm poor too. Not really. I'm not like technically poor, but I got 2 kids I gotta feed and stuff, so I don't want to go poor trying to tip other people and everything. So that's what I do. I know I've been rambling on and on about taxes and tipping, but it's just so common here in American culture. It's something that we don't really think about as Americans because we're used to it, but I know it can be a really big culture shock for other people when they come to visit America to see that, oh my goodness, my trip is becoming way more expensive than I thought because of taxes, because of tipping. Like, I cannot even tell you how many times I've had friends tell me, I'm here in America for a month. It's the 2nd week and I'm almost out of money. And I'm like, yeah, I should have told you that. Whenever you think about coming to America or traveling here, just remember you're probably going to have to spend more for tips or for taxes. And honestly, whenever my friends have a goal of money that they want to bring, they're like, hey, Carly, I'm traveling to America. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to be here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. This is how much money I plan to bring. I always tell them to add another $1,000 on top of that. And you're like, oh my gosh, Carly, $1,000 is a lot. But think about it. If you're paying taxes on a rental car, hotels, the food that you eat out every day for 2 weeks, you're tipping because you're eating out food every day for 2 or 3 weeks. It adds up real quick. So I always tell my friends, like, yo, add another $1,000 on there and you should be good. You're going to have that cushion. You might not spend it all. Like, hopefully you won't spend even half of it, but just in case, you'll have that there where you're not like completely, over budget or anything like that. So yeah, I hope you guys have a better understanding of taxes and tips. As an American, we don't like it, but we do it. But I can understand, from the outside looking in, because I have spent so many years living abroad too, that it can be quite a culture shock when you come here and you're like, oh, everything is so expensive. So yeah, I hope this episode helps you understand both taxes and tipping customs, and hopefully it will help you avoid awkward situations and just ensure that you are enjoying your American life to the fullest and everything. So thank you for joining me today on this episode of Tea with Carly. If you like this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next episode.